COVID lockdown's the worst in the world. My son lives in Melbourne. I'm 1,375 kilometres away, or 855 miles. With a healthy budget, I decided to do a blog project about stepping out of fear induced by depression. I explained to the mechanic's office manager I was doing a blog on depression and proving that you can do normal tasks, getting the car registered. To prove to myself that a lot of anxiety can be overcome, move on, face your fears, and celebrate the joy of having the car registered and in top performance mode. I was just mentioning the blog to make it real in my mind and hoping they would put their best effort into the journey to return it to its rightful owner in top form. I would mention the blog to the tow truck driver and the auto shop owner, a blog of overcoming depression by doing positive things in your life. We've owned our Porsche 944 for 16 years. For long periods during this time, it has been garaged, rarely used. We would, however, bring her out to do the long journey from Sydney to South Australia, 1,200 k's, 745 miles, 16 hours, and was always a pleasure to drive. In our life, this car was best suited to our long-haul journeys. We had the interior reupholstered, agreeing with the guy to leave the back storage section black for wear and sun aging reasons. The existing material was purpose designed. The interior roof was tidied up at the back left car where a leak had been repaired. In May 2018, I was promoted and relocated from Sydney to Brisbane as an executive. I drove the 900 k's, 570 miles from Sydney to Brisbane, and she drove like a dream. It had been a long time since I'd driven her on a long journey and was in my element. Sending my son updates on its performance and beaming that we had the shared love and the optimism of a fresh start in sunny Queensland. The temperature gauge runs a little hot in bumper-to-bumper traffic, but on the open road she was running like a perfect machine. The car had historical plates and was a member of the Porsche Club New South Wales. This photo was taken the day prior to taking the car to the mechanic. It is in a very dirty condition when I go to collect it. When I first arrived in Brisbane, May 2018, I found a temporary apartment. Our belongings were in storage in Sydney until I familiarised myself with Brisbane and found the right home. My son was on a break interstate at the time. Although it has always been kept undercover, in Brisbane I parked outside in the car space as shown. I lived here for several months and the car wasn't covered during storms. This becomes important later on. I didn't drive much once I arrived in Brisbane as I walked to work, and it began to have trouble kicking over as I left the battery connected. I spoke to my contact at the Porsche Club and she suggested I reach out to the local club. I contacted the Queensland Porsche Club President and VP. They recommended 2 mechanics. I chose the one they said was a member of the club and that they had worked with. This mechanic was further away, but I chose to go with someone the club recommended. I thought it was an excellent way to get to know the members, as I was hoping it would be a healthy social activity for my son when he arrived. 16th of November 2018, I sent another email to the Queensland Porsche Club thanking them for the recommendation, confirming the work had been done, and the mechanic had provided me a list of what else needed doing. To bring the car up to top performance. Had my employment worked out, I would have proceeded to have these works done. The quote was dated 7th of November 2018. The quote I received in November 2018 was an estimate cost to carry out the repairs and overall from the service they'd done. They said it was an estimate and further parts may be required upon removal, but customer would be notified. Again, that's very important for what happens in the future. So their labour was for a radio cap and pressure testing cooling system, replace a window relay, replace wiper blades, remove all the windows and brake pads and lubricate calipers, reassemble, replace the oil pressure sender unit, replace 2 tyres, remove and replace engine mounts, remove all shock absorbers and fit new front inserts, tighten up the right-hand sun visor, remove glove box and check air conditioning and flap operation. So for that, it was a total of $1,383. The parts would be the radiator cap, relay for the electric windows, wiper blades, oil pressure sender, engine mounts, front strut and inserts, rear shock absorbers, 2 tyres, sublet to strip, fit and balance the tyres, shop supplies, freight on parts, and courier tyres. They were Falcon tyres quoted, and with an option of Hancock's or Dunlop. All of the car history was in storage in Sydney, so I was unable to check it. But as the mechanic had been referred by the Porsche Club, I put my faith in them and now had a dollar figure that would bring the car up to perfect condition, both mechanically and cosmetically inside. $3,560 was achievable. The bodywork would be next. My intention was to have this work done as soon as possible. Brisbane was to be a fresh start with more income, paying less rent than Sydney, and a home base for my son. He intended to do some travelling. He'd been helping the household financially since leaving school as my financial situation suffered. Getting the car mechanically sound and up to date was the least I could do for him as a young adult who had encountered many difficulties fresh out of high school through no fault of his own. And then this happened. The established Queensland team didn't take too kindly to a female being promoted and allocated the premium territory and relocated from Sydney into their team by the Sydney head office. They made my life so difficult to the point I was unable to do my job. After months of trying to resolve the issues, I put in a formal grievance and I was given no choice but to leave. I was stalked by my ex-co-worker out of 2 additional employment positions. They'd found my temporary address despite not even my doctor having it and seemed to be tracking me somehow. I was in a new city, didn't know anyone, financially injured and separated from my family and possessions, and now semi-homeless, ending in a medical condition, living in fear, and resulting in the above referral to a psychologist. Thus, the car was put on hold. It stated that due to my adjustment disorder, due to being bullied in the workplace to the point that it is apparently going to be difficult for her to apply for further jobs in Queensland. Just to put that into perspective, Queensland is 5 times larger than Japan. My son and I were in semi-states of homeless in different parts of the country. I'd not taken the decision to move and uproot his home base lightly. The company was based on culture, and I was confident that this was going to be a long-term position, having received top performance reviews. It was a solid opportunity for a fresh start in a better climate. But this seemingly very measured decision to relocate for a better life had destroyed us and had put both our lives on difficult, sometimes unsafe, dangerous, unfamiliar trajectories. I've now been diagnosed with depression as I was stalked and financially crippled. I was concerned for my son's well-being. He was now stuck in a faraway state with no home to go to. He had one option that he said was unsafe. I was pushed through the threshold of fear, stress, and an inability to help him. He didn't want to come to Brisbane yet, as my temporary loft apartment was too small, and he would wait to come over. Not understanding, I was also unsafe now. I wish he had come at that time, as things only got worse for both of us due to not having a safe home base. I was paying for both rent and storage out of meagre savings meant to be to set up our home. Mid-2020, due to COVID lockdown, I was able to access my superannuation. This eliminated debt and gave me breathing space. I'd not seen my son in almost a year, and he was stuck in Melbourne. in the COVID lockdowns, the strictest lockdowns worldwide, and me in Queensland. Life's been stressful, unsafe and traumatising for both of us since I decided to move to Brisbane, including an unbearable period of estrangement caused by the inability, due to the stalking, to secure safe employment and afford to bring my belongings to Brisbane and set up home. Life-changing events took place as a result. In 2019, when the clutch first started sticking, I called a number of local brake and clutch mechanics, but they all stated I would need to go to a Porsche specialist. I found this odd compared to Sydney. The mechanic was a long distance away, so I garaged the car and went interstate to help my son. The car was now unregistered and stored under a house. Without the kind help from the landlord, I would have lost the car by now, as it was unregistered, and without her help, I would have had nowhere to store it. Over the past year, I would start it periodically and check the water and oil. It started fine. I'd removed the battery terminals in between, but the clutch was sticking to the floor and I had to use my foot to flip it up. The day I moved it from the garage to its current location, the clutch worked fine. Since COVID, I'd barely left the house in months. My start-up business had grounded to a halt and I was concerned for and missing my son. July 2020, Melbourne still in lockdown. I wanted to do something optimistic for both he and I. The car is our favourite thing. We consider it a part of our family. It was also prudent to have a reliable registered car in these unpredictable COVID times. The state of Victoria was in total lockdown due to COVID. By early September, a pregnant woman was arrested in Victoria for Facebook posts against COVID. On the 12th of September, there was riot squads in central Melbourne. It was extremely distressing and particularly watching from afar. So with the superannuation money, I emailed the mechanic for a refresh of the quote and to book it in to get certificates for registration. After several emails over a number of weeks, I had arranged with the mechanic for their tow truck service to collect the car from here on Friday the 2nd of October 2020. They confirmed the price, time frame that the car would be locked, that it would be locked in and secure, and there was a 6-month warranty on all works. They also confirmed I was unable to travel in the tow truck due to the COVID restrictions. On Wednesday, the 30th of September 2020, I checked over the car, the water, oil, etc. was all good. Took some photos as part of my plan to do the blog. Thursday, the 1st of October, I took videos and was so happy to be getting the car on the road and taking the first step to returning it back to its rightful owner, my son. As you're aware, he's stuck in lockdown. One video shows where the car's parked for the last year. No leaks on the floor, one existing spot, and watermark from filling the reserve. All the levels were fine. I moved the car into the top of the driveway, ready for the tow truck tomorrow. The clutch is working fine. I drove the car with no issue. On the 2nd of October, I went outside to do the final video, i.e. testing everything, the lights, etc., as it got too dark last night. The tow truck driver was standing at the gate. The final video isn't done. But surprise, in new quote, when Don said that the headlight mechanism is stuck and the car has leaks. I don't have proof that the light wasn't working properly, as I was expecting I would have 30 minutes before the arrival of the tow truck. The videos were meant to be an optimistic addition to the blog regarding depression, anxiety, and tackling daily tasks people take for granted and getting a positive outcome. Getting the car registered had been on my to-do list for months, but due to my personal circumstances, I was unable to face getting it done. Where the car was safe. Getting the car registered and all the work done was going to be the first step to reuniting my family and listening to my psychologist that I needed to move on from my fear and safety concerns. I agreed. I couldn't remain where I was. So on the 7th, I spoke to Nicole from the mechanic. She explained the quote she was sending. It's in numerous parts, with the $516 at the top being due and payable before any other work is done. That included the tow truck and removal and replace the clutch master cylinder and bleed the clutch fluid, including a master cylinder and brake clutch fluid. The next section was required for the roadworthy, and the rest was the cosmetics works I'd originally requested back in 2018, but that came now up to a total of $6,273. Again, I put my faith in them and didn't have the originals, which are still interstate, in storage, so I was unable to refer to them. Where it sat was clean. The 8th of October, I went through the Thursday, the 8th of October, I went through the condition report. There was far more listed on there and works required than their previous quote. I was kicking myself I hadn't made the tow truck driver wait when he arrived early, regretting I hadn't done the full video checking everything. At the time, it wasn't for proof. It was so the blog was complete. But that's what anxiety does to you. The dreaded black dog was visiting and I couldn't make any sense of the quote, so I put it away. But I was concerned with the following. The left-hand headlight, never any problem, but I should have checked it before taking the car. Air conditioning, not operating, possible. Oil seat, power steering leaks, I was sceptical about. The floor where the car showed one black spot and a mark from when I filled the reserve, but all the fluids had been full when I checked the water and oil. The window washer hadn't had any problems. The glove box support was broken. The trip counter reset inoperable. Now comparing the gauges, they're being completely swapped out anyway. With the history folder unavailable, I was unable to confirm some of the stuff I doubted, but I told myself, though, professional members of the Porsche Club highly recommended. The quote was $6,273. I had the budget, no problem. I tried to keep my eye on the prize, reminding myself I was doing this for my son and the car would be in top condition. Think of the relief, having a registered car and money well spent. Thursday, the 8th of October, I couldn't make a decision on the quote, including the leaks that can't be there because where it sat was clean. Also, Nicole had said I requested 4 tyres instead of their recommended 2. Now they said 4 was required. The car hadn't been driven since really they'd seen the car, so small details, but enough to send me into a state of anxiety where I couldn't breathe or couldn't think. Pardon me. And then despising myself for being so pathetic. People register their cars every day of the year. I've owned cars all my life, sometimes 2 at a time. I'd spoken to my son on the weekend, and down in Melbourne, a mechanic was trying to rip him off for $4,000. Luckily, one of his good friends is a mechanic, so he knows what's going on. I'd mistakenly told him the car was at the mechanic's getting registered. I just wanted to give him some optimistic news. He said, "Oh, that's great." He hadn't wanted to worry me, but the past few months had been really tough on him. Due to Melbourne COVID lockdowns and losing a second income, he was under a lot of stress and really struggling. It was great to hear the car was getting ready for him. We decided it didn't make sense to take the car to him and that it would remain here in Queensland. Due to being unable to think clearly regarding the quote, I spoke to a Facebook friend of mine and we decided get the rego done once the car is on the road and we're confident of their workmanship, get the rest done. This would also be a great progression for the blog and showing if you can't move forward or are paralysed by anxiety and stress, then just take small steps to reach your goal. I called the mechanic and the owner answered the phone. I ordered the works for the roadworthy. He said he would have his manager call and confirm tomorrow and that they would progress with the works. Test to register is Thursday the 15th of October. Thursday the 15th of October, almost a week since I'd spoken with the mechanic. Nicole called. She said the wrong parts had arrived and the car wouldn't be ready until next week. She said she'd email me the safety certificate rego papers to take to the Department of Transport. She said the existing registration plates are glued on the car and they'll do the plates when I am there in case any damage caused removing them. I received the safety certificate at 11:43 on the 15th of October. Just to note, the brakes, tyres and windows had all passed safety on the 15th of October. On the 16th, I printed out the safety certificate and went to the Department of Transport in the city. When I handed the safety certificate to the teller, he entered the details in, gave me side eye, left his seat and came back. He entered something else into his computer and asked me, "Are you running a chop shop?" This is a government department, so it was a very unusual comment. The process to register is different here in Queensland. I told him no, why, I've owned the car for 16 years. I gave him the old New South Wales registration plates. He went and spoke with his manager and then said he would sort it out. Numbers were different on the safety certificate. He registered the car and gave me new Queensland registration plates. Total cost was $775 with CTP for 12 months. CTP compulsory third party is required with registration. They give you a selection of insurance providers. I selected RACQ as I intended to get insurance and roadside assistance with them and establish a history with them, as I'd done with NRMA in Sydney. On Monday the 19th of October, Nicole called saying that the parts had arrived and the car would be ready to pick up on Wednesday. During this call, I explained they were the only company that had worked on the car since it had been in Brisbane regarding the plates glued to the car. It turned out that they had double-sided taped them. In regard to the car taking longer than they originally said, I said to take their time. I'd be happy when it was all done, trying to be as accommodating as possible. I suggested that to make the glued plates issue easier, I would be happy to install the new plates larger than the existing ones over the glued plates to avoid any damage. I was attempting to make everything as simple as possible for them so I could have the car back safely in my possession. Tuesday the 20th of October 2020. I received an invoice from the mechanic at 11:06 a.m. I printed the invoice out to pay and collect the car that afternoon. I'd even saved it as the 944 invoice paid. When I read the items, it showed as below. It actually said, check over vehicle for clutch sticking to floor, found okay at the time of testing, clutch master cylinder requires replacing. And so the cost of the clutch is now out, and there's only the tow truck left in that section, which just didn't make any sense. The clutch hadn't been done, but requires replacing. That's what it says. So check over clutch for clutch sticking, found okay at the time of testing, clutch master cylinder requires replacing. I spoke to Nicole from the phone records and confirming that the clutch replacement was the purpose of them arranging the tow truck in the first place, and that I wanted to make sure that everything was completely up to scratch. I'd been comfortable with that. Don, the owner, who had also confirmed it with, he'd not mentioned that they'd not replaced the clutch. So, and if we go back to the 7th of October call, Nicole had said to me that the tow truck and the clutch works had been done and were due and payable without any other works being done. Now, 2 weeks later, the clutch works aren't done, but the master cylinder requires replacing. It just didn't make any sense. So, due to the inconsistencies in the info on the clutch, I searched my emails for any details of past works on the car that I could compare. Strangely enough, I found an email from my Sydney mechanic. He'd replaced the clutch master and slave cylinders in May 2016. Now, the car had rarely been driven since then, so the existing clutch that was in the car would not have done more than 2,500 k's maximum, and that would include driving to Brisbane. So, I don't know what's happening. I'll leave it at that. Thursday the 22nd of October 2020. It's now 20 days that the mechanic has had the car. I was wanting to leave home, but I didn't know what was happening. I was becoming stressed, so I should I take the plates with me? Will they call me while I'm out? So I sent them an email just saying, can you please let me know what date the car will be ready for pickup? Can we confirm that you put the plates on for me when I arrive? So at 9:24, I received a very odd email. It said, hi, the vehicle should be ready for pickup this afternoon, depending on the client's arrival today. Yes, we will fit the number plates when you arrive. Now, as I said, what sort of language is that? Should be ready depending on the client. What was going on? I was beginning to feel physically and emotionally sick. How can such a simple task be going so wrong? She'd also said that all the parts had arrived on the 19th of October 2020. So I was really getting quite concerned. So the following day, the 23rd, I Nicole, can you give me an update? And I heard nothing. On Friday, the 23rd of October, I received a call from the owner, Don, the owner of the business. He said the brake pedal was now sticking to the floor of the car, that the brake booster needs to be tested and the master cylinder replaced. He has taken the brake booster apart and sent it away. Now, as you're aware, the safety certificate, very important part, or the most important part, is your brakes. Now, they issued that certificate, I don't know, now it's a week. So I was becoming very concerned. He said there was a lot more wrong with the car than he thought, but the car won't be ready until he knows what's happening. There's been nothing wrong with the brakes. They were operating perfectly fine. If there was an issue, how did they provide rego, as I said, and a safety inspection to get the car registered? None of anything that they were saying now made any sense. I spoke with the Department of Transport about the situation. The lady I spoke to said nothing they could do. I could cancel the registration, as I'm not sure when I'll get the car back, and it cost me $775, but the refund would be pro rata, and it wasn't helpful, and I needed the car registered. So I did some Google searches. There's a few other things that between Monday and Wednesday, but I did a very quick Google search, and if your car has a bad brake booster, you'll likely notice one of the following: hard brake pedal, increased stopping distance, missing noise, fluid leaks, illuminated warning light, vacuum operated brake booster. A bad brake booster makes the brake pedal much harder to depress as the booster fails. It loses its ability to provide additional force against the master cylinder. It was just Dr. Google. All of these are very simple. And it says replacing the booster on the Porsche 944 is not difficult. I then did a search. For replacement parts, the brake booster, the aftermarket ATE, brand new ATE $266, or the brake booster genuine Porsche was $910. I'm generally happy to go for the cheaper, obviously the best if I had the budget, but a cheaper aftermarket new product, and that's what I would have agreed to had they called. I would not have put a second-hand part in with the option available. They ended up charging me $381 for a second-hand brake booster, including noting that this was supplied at cost price and no labour or sublet testing had been charged. So why would anyone do that? And I was very, very concerned now. Thursday the 29th of October. It's now almost a week and I haven't heard anything from the mechanic. I can't obviously just sit around, and I can't let myself be paralysed by this anymore. I called the RACQ. I have my CTP with them and intended to get insurance and roadside assistance with them. The lady I spoke to said they can't do anything, but it doesn't sound right. She suggested I call the police. She gave me 2 police numbers, Legal Aid and Service Australia's number. When I asked her what she thought Service Australia's could do, she said, as I sounded so anxious and stressed, a social worker might be available to assist me in dealing with this. I'm too scared to go to the police and get them involved. Throughout all the stalking, I was told not to involve the police, as many local posts on Facebook showed cars were broken into and badly damaged, and the police refused to visit them. So I didn't know what to do. I called Legal Aid, and they said that a lawyer would give me a call within 24 to 48 hours. Services Australia said the social worker has been requested to call me and they'll call back. Against their own policy, the mechanic, as in quote dated back in 2018, I was not notified of any of the brake works being done. Okay, and they specifically said customer will be notified before any further works are done. Below on this invoice, a note, on the brakes invoice, the dates are a bit wrong. I received this on the 30th. There's a note stating, so this is my invoice for the brakes. There's now $1,136 additional dollars for brakes that should never have been done. So, but what is most concerning is it has a please note the brake booster supplied at cost price. Labour for diagnosis has not been charged, as I said, but under that it says it is very important. There are still a number of problems outstanding on the above vehicle. Very important is the age of the timing belt. Before any long journeys, the cam belt and balance belt should be replaced. This would include the water pump being replaced at the same time. Some cam and belt tensioner rollers may also require placing. Oil pressure switch requires replacing as there is no reading on the dash, which was incorrect. Radiator cap should be replaced, and he seems to be stuck on the radiator. However, the most concerning was the above items should be done before everyday use of this vehicle. There are still a number of other repairs required to be done in the future as per the previous condition report. So now the first invoice payable of $4,500 plus $1,336 without any of the works having been done. On the 30th of October, I received a call from Legal Aid. There's nothing they can do but give me some advice. Their advice was, despite the situation, to pay the invoices and get the car back into my possession. They suggested I could call Consumer Affairs, Fair Trading, but no monetary settlement can be given. They will negotiate with the mechanic to have any works done through conciliation. In other words, I'd have to send the car back to them. And her third suggestion was to sue them. Now, I've just noticed the brake booster $1,136 invoice was issued to me on the 30th of the 10th as well. So, just for clarification there. On Monday, the 2nd of November, I called RACQ. I was going to take the advice of Legal Aid, take in the invoices and get the car. So on Monday, I called RACQ relating to the insurance. I called to organise, number one, an inspection of the car. This would have served two purposes: have a second opinion of the works and provide some security for me when I go there to collect the car. I knew something dodgy was going on and felt unsafe, but again, I don't know many people in Brisbane, and the mechanic is located in a far away place. I was on the call with RACQ for over an hour. The RACQ operator said she would put me through to the inspection department and asked was there anything else I needed today. I said yes, I wanted to get roadside assistance and comprehensive insurance. She said she would organise that first. So after processing the insurances in 2 different departments, I was finally put through to book the car inspection, and I was told, I'm sorry, we don't do inspections on that type of car. It's too old. What the hell? So they've accepted CTP insurance from me. They've taken roadside assistance, so they're going to support the car that they won't do an inspection on should anything happen out in the road. And they've taken comprehensive insurance of $766, but they wouldn't do a mechanical inspection. So what is going on? Nothing makes sense. The inspection was the purpose of the call. I received a call from them. They said I could cancel the insurance, but it didn't make sense. I needed the insurance. It was such a mess that I hung up on them. I then received another call from them, I think the following day, that if I do cancel the insurances that they'd taken without, it would be 21-day wait for a refund. But she said they may waive this due to the circumstances. I couldn't think straight. I was stuck and couldn't believe I was unable to have the assurance or confirmation of an independent inspection. It's now Monday, the 2nd of November. I haven't heard from the mechanic in over a week, and they now have had the car for a month. I called, as I said, NRMA. That happened, and so I'd arranged for a friend of mine to come with me. Luckily, she had changed her hours for work and was available, so we called an Uber out. I didn't notify the mechanic that I was coming out. I was following the legal aid's advice of paying the invoices and getting the car back in my possession. It was all just confusing. So I arrived there at the mechanic and was led in through the workshop to go to the office. As I was walking in, Nicole was walking towards me, and she looked up and realised it was me and stared at me as if she'd seen a ghost. She asked me to stay where I was and she would get Don. My friend was waiting for me so I could follow them back. I don't know my way around. I wasn't sure what I was walking into and wasn't sure if they would hand over the car and I'd be stuck out there. Also, obviously, the pressure, I wasn't thinking very well. While we were waiting for them to replace the number plates, I noticed a 944 was being detailed in their car park, yet my car was in a filthy state. When I had asked why they put on the second-hand brake booster without asking me or notifying me at all, they said you can't buy one. It wasn't an option. Nicole said you can't get new parts or not many new parts for that vehicle anymore. And then Don said, you're talking a couple of $1,000s. So they obviously were treating me, as can be seen, like a complete moron, because I already knew that with one Google search, and I have purchased things straight from the supplier of the brake booster, so I know them as well. They're based in Sydney. He also said about the existing one, he said, this is his story about the brake booster. We sent it away and had it tested. It came back as though it was okay, but the issue, as soon as you put it back in the car, there's a valve that's inside here that obviously wasn't working, so we've pulled that on and off 3 times and haven't charged you a cent. Don had the brake booster in his hand. I said I'd take that, and can I have the other parts from the car? I mentioned a friend had suggested that, and he said, do they know about cars, do they? When the plates were on and I went to leave, I realised one of the original historic plates was missing. I asked for it and they were adamant that the car only had one when it arrived. I disputed it until finally one of the guys went out the back and came back with the second plate. We noted the number plate of the 944 being detailed after I realised how much had been changed on my car. While I was driving back, following my friend from the mechanic, the air conditioning was running hot, so I attempted to wind the windows down. None of them were working. I made a couple of videos, but the more I looked at the car, the sicker and more revolted I was. 5th of November, exhausted and defeated, the car was undrivable. It was against the law, because I haven't told you, when I got it into the yard, I did a once-over video. I opened the door to get the latch to the engine to open the hood, and the driver's side door came down I couldn't get it up. So now I had a car that the left-hand side window was down. You can't even leave that in the shopping centre because it's a fine. It's against the law to park and leave your car with the windows down. So I'm $7,000 out of pocket with a car I can't drive. From Thursday to Sunday, I was completely paralysed, unable to function and defeated. I was flat to dead inside. Now the issue is there's nowhere to go to resolve this problem. I should have known better, but doing something positive was the right thing to do. I just can't believe the outcome. As the car, I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you. This is the final slide. I don't know how much or how little information I should be giving. So it's now the 5th of December. I've been finalising the summary of events for weeks now. Sometimes I can't think, other times I can't sleep. I've lost all this time from my training. The health blog I was participating in the training for, documenting about the car, is now a negative project with negative debilitation energy, extremely upsetting. My health blog was going to be built on the triumphant energy of having the car safely registered and money well spent. I've lost 4 kilos. The purpose of putting this together is to ask, what would you do? Do you know anyone who has experience with Porsche mechanics to look at the information and the comparisons I've put together? I'm not sure if I can pay someone internationally to have a look, or I really don't know. For the past 4 months, I've been getting into excellent physical shape for immunity, to combat the COVID issues, and not being able to see my son who's in Victoria. I was attending a gym, participated in a 6-week training camp to improve my mental and physical health, eating as healthy as possible, natural diet, supplements, and 130 days smoke-free. Everything was working. The car was just the cream on the top. I'd refused to go on medication my doctor recommended because I wanted to improve physically and mentally through nutrition, supplements, and regular exercise. I have an urgency, obviously, to be alert, and medication would have had the opposite effect. This is what gave me the strength and the determination to get on with life and get the car registered. As you can see on this slide, there's Lewis Hamilton hugging his dad, being very grateful. They actually started with nothing, which I'm very surprised. His dad had to work 3 and 4 jobs just to help him reach his dreams. The photo's a beautiful one of father and son embracing. That is what I envisaged for my son, and now I don't know what to tell him. So this is my blog to date. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
This is just confirming the brake booster information. I just wanted to confirm because I wasn't 100% sure. The brake booster invoice is dated the 30th of October 2020. However, it was received in an email that was sent on the 29th of October 2020 at 8:23 p.m. It says, "Hi, the repairs to the brakes were completed this morning. Please refer attached invoice. When you are feeling well enough, please contact our office to discuss if required. Vehicle is ready to be picked up once both invoices have been paid." So that's just for clarification of the invoice number for the brake booster, the date that the invoice was dated, and the actual date that it was sent to me. So that's what I couldn't work out earlier. Also, one other correction. I say when I'm at the Department of Transport that I handed them over the old registration plates. I actually meant the registration papers, so I just had a copy of the registration as it was until it expired most recently. That's all the information. As I said, I'm really looking forward to somebody hopefully giving some suggestion as to what they would do or the options. There's none here in Brisbane. No one else will look at the car. There's only the two Porsche people. Now the car's undrivable. The second mechanic, the Porsche mechanic that everybody's saying I should go to, he was actually an ex-partner of Don, the mechanic that did this. So it's a very parochial city, Brisbane. No one else will look at it. I went to the governing body, RACQ, and they wouldn't even do an inspection. So I'm actually just have no options, and that's why I do hope that somebody takes the time to go through all this and would like to offer me any suggestions. I really appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.